I think, I guess, um, I think that I don't know, like, I don't know how I feel about the ending about it. Like, I guess I don't know if I totally subscribe to her theory. Let's leave it at that.
Okay. Well, why don't we just get into it? Because you just opened up a great discussion. What do you feel her theory was in the book?
I guess I thought her theory was you can choose what you can choose, I guess, whether to be happy or not. I mean, that's the gist of it, I guess.
Right. How
And
does that make you? What do you feel about that?
I think it's true to a point, but you can't choose your circumstances a lot of times. And I think that you have to figure out whether or not, so there's different ways to be happy. You can be internally happy, or you can be unhappy because of the circumstances that are happening to you, but they're not, I think she makes them like, she separates the two completely, and I don't think you can separate the two completely.
I definitely hear what you're saying. Okay, we will get to that. I love your perspective. Thanks for sharing, Andy. Juan, do you have any? How do you feel about the book so far from what you read?
Yes, what most impressed me is that every time that she had a pretty hard time, she came back to her parents' words and her parents' experience. She used to remember what her mother say, what his father say, everything what used to happen in her life, just to be able to keep going every time. Another day, another day, another day, and even in the good times. And I think it's a pretty Jewish thing. I think it's uh, actually I think it's a pretty impressive point of view, and I feel agree with all of this. I think if you are able to keep this love for the life and everything after all of this, you are you are accomplishing a big mitzvah. So I think so it's my point of view.
Wow, I love that. So you, so far, from what you read, agree with with her theories and find it to be of a Jewish concept.
I think yes. It's I think she's pretty consistent. It's hard. I think it's a pretty hard experience for her, but I think she managed everything pretty well. She she's just saying whatever she did. She's not cheating or something like this. She's not inventing anything.
We can't hear you, Juan. Juan. We don't hear you. Your mute button's on. Just click. Yeah, there.
Yeah, I think she's consistent with whatever she had to live. Um, uh, and the most interesting is she's no arrogant at all. She hear everybody. She takes whatever coming from everybody in the same dimension. Like, she doesn't put nobody mm, bigger than any other people because the problem or whatever it is, she just try to put everybody in his place or her place or whatever it is, and it's pretty consistent. She is not she's not saying, I do words or blah, 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 blah. No, no, no. She is saying in her place and trying to hear everybody and and trying to transmit whatever she did. Just keep going, keep going, keep going, and choose the best for you. And I think the best for everybody is happiness. It's a mitzvah.
Yeah, I love what you're saying. And I agree with you, especially the part you said how she was consistent the whole time. For the
Yes.
beginning of the book until the end, her theory, whether we agree with it fully or not, it's interesting to read how she had the same approach to living life from a young child until now. And she keeps that same theory and that same tools that she used when she was a little girl in the concentration camps until she is an adult. And the same tool stays true to her the whole way through, which is interesting to even be able to have such tools at a young age. I know, Andy, you have little girls, right? Having such wisdom at such a young age like that is mind-boggling. But then to live with the same theories all the way through and use the same tools to live is also pretty commendable. Hillary, I want to welcome you to the Zoom. Thanks for joining. Did you read the book, The Choice?
Yes, thank you. I had a problem finding you. I'm actually still reading the book. I'm a little bit more than halfway through, and I am loving it.
So please, we've been going around, everyone sharing their initial thoughts on it. If you could share with us your initial thoughts on the book, how you feel about it so far.
I had read so many of these World War II novels that it's refreshing to read something that's really from somebody's own perspective. I find it extremely sad, extremely uplifting. So many different things come to mind. I love her story. I cry a lot during the book. I just can't help myself. The tears flow at times.
Yes, I found the same. I was also very emotional during different parts of it.
Yes, yes. And you just got to let it happen, you know.
You have to welcome those tears.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
You know, I found, I mean, what I just heard, what Juan said and my wife reiterated, noticing how Dr. Egar has the same, maybe call it life policy from day one through to the end of the book. I found that to be, I didn't even notice it. Truthfully, I didn't notice it. But now that you're saying it, I see it. And I think that's fantastic. That's quite impressive that a person can live with something from day one all the way to the end. In some level of criticism, I had a conversation with a peer who also read through the book, and that person kind of wondered, like, I guess, how do you say, like how is she so clear about being so present, about how is she so clear about how she feels in so many parts of her life? At every time she thinks the same things, she has the same mindset. It really baffles me. I've got a question that I want to ask. She like the book is peppered with stories. It's all like it's nearly like a novel. One could look at the book and think it's a novel, right? But
yes,
her stories are so meaningful. Every story has a lesson. Every story has something to tell. Does anyone remember? My question is: does anyone remember a story that really stuck out that they thought was unique or that was worth remembering? And as I say, does anyone? I think that we can go around in some level of circle. So let's start with Juan, and then we'll go to Andy, and then we'll go to Hillary. How does that sound?
Moshe, you can also pipe in your favorite part, even if you haven't read it.
Yeah,
Actually,
I haven't started the book yet, but I'm looking forward to it now that I'm hearing all the positive feedback.
Awesome.
I don't know if you remember the part with when she said that her mother used to say that when the door is locked, always should be a window. It's pretty much the essence of the choice. But if you can't use the main door, there are options, always options. And I think this is the main part. When I read this part, I remember this part every time when the book keep going and everything.
Cool.
And I think it's the
Okay.
essence of the choice. Uh, You don't have to surrender because of the issues or the things that are happening, because you still can choose the way that you receive it and you use it. And uh, in other words, as many rabbis say, that there are many messages in whatever happened. You don't have to be able to read the message, and I think she was able.
Yeah. She was definitely able to get to take that message and take it with her and take it the whole way through. Quite, yeah.
Andy, is there a part of the story that like stuck out for you?
I guess I'm trying to, I guess it's weird because from my standpoint, I don't see these messages carried through or her life philosophy carried through. I feel as though when she was young, she just talked about how bad her mom made her feel. And it was really the dance class and her dancing that was the relief. So I guess I'm just kind of not following because for me it was that her mom didn't really help her self-esteem much, and that it was the dance class and there was where she learned that she had some worth. And this whole book in my mind was basically her finding her worth, and everything from like, she had, and this love of this guy that kind of carried her through the concentration camps, wanting to see him again. And then she felt like she had settled in her marriage, so she ended up getting the divorce, and then I guess ended up going through and deciding that she wanted to be with him again for whatever reasons. But I think that in my mind, and this is where I think it differentiates, it seems as though when things were going well in her life, she was able to make better choices because of the circumstances. And that's what allowed her to change her mind and feel as though, she has the ability to make better choices. But when things were bad in her life, she felt powerless. She didn't feel as though she had the ability to make those choices. And that's what I got out of the book. And that's why I'm saying it's hard, because I feel as though circumstances did dictate her mindset, even though I understand at the end of the book, she's saying that circumstances shouldn't dictate your mindset.
So first of all, I totally hear what you're saying. And I think what's amazing about reading a book, and this happened to me before, and maybe other people have related to this, is sometimes you'll read a book and you'll read it one way. Someone else will read the book and take it a completely different way. And that's what's like really like interesting about reading books, is that even though we're all reading the same words, everyone takes away different parts to it, especially the things that like you connect with. So let's say there was a part of a book where like you really resonated with like your childhood or your adulthood, or you saw your mother in it, or you saw your brother in it, then like sometimes you'll really like pick up on that part of the book. and take away something different than somebody else. So I think we all probably even have, if everyone at one point could say their takeaways, it probably will be different for different people depending on what things resonate for them.
No, I
I definitely hear what you're saying, that the hard times were hard, and all that whole aspect. What does that how do they feel about what she's sharing? Hillary, how do you feel about that aspect of the book?
I'm sorry, your voice is coming through very peculiarly
So
to
we're
me.
breaking out. That's why I'm here 1 second.
Are you there?
Can you hear us?
Now I can hear.
Yeah, it's clear now.
My first impression of the book, my
Can you
first
hear
really.
me?
Hello? I can hear.
No. Do you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Can you hear us now?
Yes.
yeah.
Can you
Okay.
hear me now?
Yes. Yes. But you are on mute.
Okay, so I'll keep the camera off for a few minutes while we try. Yes, I'm listening.
Okay, so my first impression, my first really,
I hear you. I'm listening, Hillary.
my first really strong impression was the ballet
Yes, I'm
class.
listening. I'm here.
Okay. I'm not sure if you could hear me. I've been talking.
We hear you. I think there's a delay maybe on your end.
Okay. Shall I talk?
Yes, please.
Okay. So my first really strong impression was at the ballet class when she was told that she was no longer had a place on the team. That really, it got to me in a big way. Things were not always easy for her, and yet then she had this devastating response just when she was doing something that really had a big influence on her life. And carrying on from there, when the entire family were taken away and being separated from her parents, watching her father walk off and then her mother, and that really upset me terribly. I do see, now that Andrea is talking about it, I do see the follow through as she mentioned. And yes, she wasn't all the same, but she came back to being herself. I think she was pretty true to herself all the way through, as far as I've read so far. And only gotten to where she's treating the child with anorexia. That also made a big impression on me. The way she dealt with that and how she got the family to see what was going on. It wasn't just the child, it was the entire family, basically. And further than that, I mean, I can't talk about the rest of the book because I haven't read it yet.
I have to say that the scene that you talked about was the scene that made the most impression on me, was that ballet scene when she was told that she couldn't compete. And I do think, from my standpoint, that's kind of like at that moment. And then there was a couple other scenes that she talked about from her childhood, and then understanding why her parents were the way they were. But I felt like that is, in my mind, something that we all go through in some respect. And so I could relate to her on those levels, and I did like that she included that, in the book too, is, finding out that, it wasn't why her parents said certain things, or wasn't like, why her parents did certain things, or I do think that was important for her to include in the book, and allowed us to kind of see that maybe that's where her philosophy did stem from, even though other parts of the book she talks about kind of how cruel her mother was to her or whatever. But it's interesting.
I think that must have had an influence on her later when she was treating patients, that she could see that.
Yeah, I agree.
The book definitely brings up a lot of emotions, I think, on many levels. It touches on a lot of things: childhood, motherhood. I feel like it covers almost everything. Like, it's almost hard not to see yourself or relate to something in the book. For me, one of the parts that stands out is, of course, her when she was doing ballet in front of the what's it called?
The Angel of Death.
Yes, the Angel of Death, when she was doing ballet, right, in front of him. And it was sad because on one hand, it was like inspiring that here she is in the concentration camps and she's dancing and being able to like be light and upbeat and happy. So on one hand, it was inspiring, and on the other hand, it was also kind of sad that, I know something about it, I can't put it to words, but something about it was also saddening that, like, even in all of, I don't know, I don't know what the words are. Maybe someone could pinpoint it, but definitely had that like mixed emotions. And in general, I think the book really brought home a very powerful lesson for me, that no matter what you're going through, you can dance. And I think it's like a very hard thing to do in life, to dance through the hardships. And it's something that I think she has given her clients the tools to do, and something that she had to do in order to survive. And I have listened to a lot of podcasts that she has done. A few new ones actually came out that she did just this month. And to hear her talk and her strength and perseverance, to smile today from a childhood like she had, with her mother and her boyfriend one and her husband and her sister, and to still be able to smile on this podcast, on the video I watched of her recently. It really kind of shook me up. Like, are you dancing, Chayla, at moments that could be difficult?
Yeah, strong, very strong. Yeah.
Juan, is there something you want to share?
Sounds like she had a lot of resilience.
Yeah, tons of resilience, for sure. Lots of resilience in these stories. one of the big reasons why I picked up the book altogether, and I picked it up nearly 2 years ago, is because Dr. Egar or Egar, I think the correct Hungarian pronunciation is actually Eger or something like that. And that's with Hungarian grandparents, but I should pronounce it a bit better, right? So one of the things that I found that drew me to this book was that that Dr. Egar is focusing on a style of psychotherapy that is both based on logotherapy, and logotherapy is from Viktor Frankl, and it's all about his most famous book, A Man's Search for Meaning, which is also begins as a what do you call it, survival, but even though it begins as a story of a survivor, he goes through the 3 levels of a prisoner, the 3 stages of a prisoner, and she kind of goes through those 3 stages as well. And it's I feel like you've got to read A Man's Search for Meaning alongside The Choice, and then as you get later on into the book, she goes ahead and she tells how she goes ahead and she tells how she is a how do you call it? How she takes him as her mentor, and Viktor, they enter into correspondence with her, and she had, say it this way, she had arrived at the same area of conclusion that he had arrived at in how to deal with life's journeys. And I just opened the book now and ran them again, and I noticed, and this is page 41 and 42, they're all both Viktor Frankl in his Man's Search for Meaning and also in The Choice, they both are telling of the survivors or the prisoners' need to dream about food. Everyone is thinking about food, right? And interesting as it is, it's also understandable. That's the number one thing that a person needs. And without more food, how can these people continue, and how can they survive, and how can they make it through? So on page 42, you see how they're all dreaming about the food that they're gonna make. And Viktor Frankl, if I remember correctly, he says we were always eating because there's just more. It's all food and food and food. But I maybe you can say that a person has to find in this conversation. A person finds their area in life where they have meaning, where something is important to them, and then they stick with it. And so you can see, for example, Dr. Egar, she sticks with her boyfriend Eric, and she's got Eric in her mind forever, right? And what's her number one thought always? She's going to go back to Eric. She's going to reconnect with Eric. And it's similar to notice Dr. Viktor Frankl has a very similar idea. He's thinking about his wife. On one level, he's always thinking about his wife again and again. And he's also thinking about his logotherapy and the lessons that he's thought of and that he wants to share and that he wants to perpetrate, and he doesn't want to lose. And I think this is also how she ends this book. She also ends with a quote from Viktor Frankl right at the end, that a man's searching for meaning. Everything is all about, you have to have what's important to you. And when I'm trying to find what I'm just referring to right now, that quote, because people like us, we like to quote the book. Will I find it? Will I find it is a different question. I don't remember where it was. It's right at the end. You know, you have that you have always that what's the focus and what's going to keep the person strong going through all of their hardships, right? Another moment that I found to be mind-blowing, and I still think about it, and in fact it was the subject line of one of the emails that we sent out, was she goes to Auschwitz, and I wonder, Juan and Hillary, did you guys get up to this area where she goes back to Auschwitz? No, you did. Juan, you did? You did. Okay, so it's a fascinating moment there where she, you know, she gets invited. Does it say what chapter it's up to? No, I'm just looking at the notes I read. I didn't write what chapter it was, but it's right there. It's you know, it's somewhere later on in the book where it's actually, maybe it's called in Hitler's Nest or something like that. She gets invited to speak at a you know, to soldiers who are to chaplains. She gets invited to speak to chaplains, and she has one message for them, that, you know, that whatever her message is, but she sleeps the night in Joseph Goebbels' bed.
Wow.
Right? And like, I'm not a survivor, but I'm the grandchild of a survivor, and for me that's a frightening thing to do. That's just shocking, right? I can't imagine that. But she does it, but she doesn't just do it. She says it in a way that she does it intentionally. She goes to sleep in his bed because she knows that this is the way that she's winning over the Nazis. And her husband, you know, she wants to ditch the trip, and her husband says, if you don't go, Hitler wins. Because what she carries with her is the prevailing over her sorrows, the prevailing over her troubles. And I find that continuously fascinating, how she has that inner strength, which I believe every one of us have, really. But she has that strength to go ahead and push forward, and not to get stuck in her normal, and not to get stuck in her regular. And I find that to be super impressive.
I would think, like, I haven't read the book, but I think it would be that's her sense of accountability for her suffering that she had gone through, is why she was able to get that.
You use the term accountability. What do you mean?
Well, I mean, like her accountability, like that, I shouldn't say it didn't justify her suffering, but that was able to get her to break away from her suffering. That was her accountability. That was her accountability mirror to break free from all the suffering that she had through her life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's exactly it. She goes there, she pushes herself to go there, and she pushes herself to spend the time there and to go through all the internal conversations to get through it. And as I say that, I bring up another word which I think is so important to take away from this book, which is having the internal conversations. It's often place we can be in a circumstance or in a situation where we think it's where we just doing knee-jerk reactions, where we're following habits or relying on previous mistakes to guide us forward. And in this book, I found the strength of intentional choices forward. Making a choice, you know, and I'm in the people's business, and my wife is also in the people's business. She works in school, and I work with Jews, and there's always some kind of, you know, interaction that has to be mitigated or dwelled on or pushed forward with, etc. And I find this like this intentional step forward to be a motivation, to be a strength, to be a power given to us as humans, that we're able to make the choice to go forward and make the choice to pick our reactions. You know, if there's road rage, I can choose to rage with everybody. You know, right now there isn't so much. It's a very unsettling situation in our country, and I could choose to go crazy with everybody else, or I make the choice to stand either above it or beneath it, or away from it, wherever you want to stand. But I don't stand with it. I don't stand in it. I stand out of it, and like that, I'm able to not be, you know, personally involved in a way. I guess. I think that's one of the things that this book has given me that strength on. And of course, I welcome comments if anybody wants to share something.
How did you find this book compared to other books, Holocaust based? If you've read other books about the Holocaust, my grandfather is a survivor of the Holocaust, and he's actually still alive. He is 97 years old, and it was really special. He doesn't talk about the Holocaust too much, since it's very painful for him to go back and relive his experience. But when we go visit him, of course, we see the numbers on his arm, and he tells us, you know, he speaks about it very briefly. But for me, it was my grandfather's a very happy person, very upbeat. Everything's good. He's always smiling. And to read a book of another Holocaust survivor who was able to come out and smile at the end of it all, it was nice to see, because my grandmother doesn't talk as much about his experience, to read her experience. And my grandfather was also in Auschwitz. It kind of, this is like more personal, made me feel like maybe I was reading a part of my grandfather's story that he hasn't shared. So I definitely enjoyed reading this specific book. Did anybody find this book a little bit different compared to other books of Holocaust books?
I mean, I think like I read recently, oh my God, the book, and I can't remember the name of it, but I heard her speak, and actually she died a few weeks later. So I was like one of the few, and I don't know why I can't remember the book, but she was a twin. She was an identical twin. Oh my God, it's gonna bother me.
A
But
twin of no, that's
I'm gonna have to see if I can find the book. I have the book. I have to go. It's upstairs. But anyway, I read her book, and there's differences in the fact that but I think at the end it was the same in the fact that, you know, she ended up surviving and living, and she ended up starting a foundation in Ohio. I don't remember the name of it, but it basically is the fact that she talks about it, and she said that, which is interesting from her book, and I kind of feel like it is kind of what was maybe what you guys are talking about, but she said in her book that when she was in Auschwitz, her and her twin sister are the only ones from who survived, and they both survived. And she said that she said to her twin sister, and they both made a pact that what they will live. It doesn't matter what they have to do. It doesn't matter how bad things will get, but their intention is to live through this. And that was the intention set on the day that they were taken. And that's what she said was just basically, it was the utter will to live. And that was what pushed them through. And that it was this kind of force beyond her almost that pushed her to live, and that she kind of gave up to the force, and the force was, I will live. And it's interesting how this, I guess she kind of had this same force, but I didn't feel as though that was as strong in this book as it was in the other book, because she said that she still remembers, and when, I heard her speak, it was like when she was 80. something, but she said that she still remembers that day, literally saying, I will live through whatever I have to do. I will live through this. That is my goal, is to live. And it was interesting how she talked about that in her book, and she talked about that. But this woman never spoke about it or mentioned it, but I think it was there. She just maybe called it something different.
Okay. It's 7:55. So
I just want to pipe in quick what Andy said. That first of all, I would love to read that book, and that's very interesting. I think I didn't read that book, but definitely I know this book had a lot of ups and downs and a lot of different emotions, a lot of different things. But I would love to read that book that you just mentioned. If you could, what did you say the title was?
I'm trying to find it. It's
Oh, okay, no problem.
here it is.
But yeah, thanks for sharing that. That's amazing.
It is. I'm trying to find. I'll find the name of it. I can go get the book upstairs, but I'll find the name of it and text it to you.
Okay, yes, please. Well, as we're getting closer to the top of the hour, I feel like I can sit and talk about this book for 3 hours. And what I really want to do is meet her myself. I recently watched a few interviews that she had over Zoom that are now available on YouTube. One was with like Mayor Kay, a blogger, and one was with Rabbi Ari Sholish. And just seeing her in real life today, like this month, doing these interviews, it was really mind-boggling and just inspiring to see her. And people like her, we don't know, maybe live to 120, or maybe the Mashiach comes, so they'll be here forever. But I feel like as she's getting older, it's really a gift to us to speak to her, and to learn from her and to listen to her interviews, because I found them extremely inspiring. If anyone is interested in the specific links I'm referring to, you can email us at info@chabadruralgeorgia.com. I'll be happy to share them with you. But I would love if everyone would go around and share a take home that they would like to implement in their life from the book, from any part of the book, something that is really laying on your heart right now, or something that inspired you, that was that you will enjoy. So can we start with Juan? What is something right now that is your takeaway? Even though you haven't finished the book, I'm sure there's something that you could take from. Oh, thank you, Andy. I see what you wrote on the bottom.
Okay.
All right, Juan, what would you like to share?
Mm,
Before Juan shares, some of you might have received the most recent edition of the Jewish Voice of Rural Georgia, and might notice our front cover, Juan, who is on the front cover of that magazine. So if you are looking at him and thinking he looks familiar, he is our front cover model for this past edition of the Jewish Voice of Rural Georgia. So thank you, Juan, for that.
what? I think the most common thing in the many books of the Holocaust is another day, another day, another day. I think it's the most impressive thing. I think it's pretty much everywhere, and I think it's the key of survival, because every survivor had in mind just another day, just another day, and just another day, and day after day after day, they get it. They made it. So I think it's what most touched my heart.
Yes, thanks for sharing. And that's with everything, right? Everyone is going through things, and Some people, I just what came to mind, what you shared is like, you know, the alcoholic, someone who's trying to become sober, someone who's trying to work on their anger, someone who's trying to work on their eating habits, someone that's trying to work on their marriage. It's literally day by day. To me, day by day. I love what you just said. Thank you, Juan. Hillary, what would you like to share? A takeaway from the book?
I have a feeling I'm going to get lots more takeaways as I finish the book. But at the moment, I think her strength and, well, I don't know how to put this. She saw her failings, she worked on them. And I think I'm learning from her that many things are possible that you don't think you can do. You don't think you can cope with, but you cope with a lot more than you thought you could.
Wow. I love that.
That's very strong.
That's very strong. So strong and so true, right?
Right.
We were reading at the end of the book how it's a whole story at the end of the book where she has this couple who came to therapy. It's because their son committed suicide, and years later they went to his graduation and they weren't able to celebrate it because they still felt so bad about the death of their son that they weren't able to live a happy life because they just always felt like guilty and negative about the circumstance. You'll get to it later on in the book.
Yeah.
Her point and her message that she was trying to give them in therapy was, you're the only person that is holding yourself back from dancing and from living. And I think every one of us can relate to something in their life that we're holding on to. As we say in Yiddish, a peckle, right? A little peckle of something that we're keeping with us that's holding us back from blossoming, from growing. And I agree with you, Hillary, that I find that she inspires me when I read her book to not allow those things to hold you down, but to allow yourself to blossom, because only you can do that. That was
Get
great,
rid
Hillary.
of the pekalach.
Exactly, the pekalach. Love that. Thanks, Hillary. Moshe, from this Zoom, is there something you're taking away from hearing everyone, even though you haven't read the book yet?
Yes, I would just say that, according to what you're saying, that she was able to attach a self of meaning, and that through that, she was able to be successful by visioning the end result. Even though she was going through this tumultuous times throughout her life, she was able to envision what the end result was, meeting up with her, whomever. I didn't read the book, but meeting up with someone or meeting up with or surviving through the Holocaust.
Yeah. It's like the idea of keep the eye on the prize, right?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. How about you, Andy? What's your positive takeaway? Unmute. You're muted. If you don't, just unmute. So we can hear you.
I guess it's just that, it's the same thing. Like, you just have a choice to decide, that was her whole message, right? You can choose what you want, whether or not you want to be happy or not. I would say that that's the takeaway. I do think, I guess that would be the one takeaway.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'll end with my thoughts and then pass on the mic for the last words from the rabbi. But I think it's a lot of her messages are actually deep concepts in Chassidus and in Torah, that things happen in our lives and we don't know why they happen. And this is a class we can have another time, but things happen to us and we say, why? Why do bad things happen to good people? Why does God do this to us? But the Torah teaches us, and Chassidus delves into it even more, that a person must always look through things with God's glasses and realize that God is good, and we have the choice which glasses we're going to put on in the morning, which glasses are we going to put on in the afternoon. And I know that the days when I put on that right pair of glasses, my day is happy, my day is upbeat, you feel like there's butterflies flying around, right? And the day where you put on the glasses as a victim, or you put on the victim glasses, or the all those negative things we can say about ourselves, our day is not as powerfully connecting and successful. So definitely my takeaway from this book is to remind us, similar to what you all were saying, that we have the choice which glasses to put on. And it's not easy, but we're the only ones, like she writes at the end of her book in the story, we're the only ones holding ourselves captivated from dancing. So I'd like to end with my last thoughts saying, blessing everyone here, that if we can all tap into a little bit of Dr. Egar and dance through something that has been difficult. And when we hang up, if you want to turn on some music and dance and let out any of that stress, either from the pandemic or things happening in our lives, we're the only ones that can really free ourselves from any of those anxieties and stress that come in our life. So l'chaim for that.
With closing words from a Rebbitzin as powerful as that, I don't think there's anything to add. I can't compete. But what I will say, this is what I will say, is that it's 5 minutes past the end of the hour, and so I can't take any more of our time. And to reiterate just what my wife said, that I want to bless us all to get past what's holding us back, and to blossom with good choices into the future.
Yeah.
With that, I'm still like thinking about what book we should do next for the next book club. And of course, emails will go out about it, and you can also send in any suggestion books that you've got to our email. Don't send them on the chat box, because it'll be lost, kind of thing. Send it into the email. But what I'm thinking about now, and I've been, we spend a lot of time thinking about what we're thinking, right? So I'm thinking about a book, and I'm like, is this book, do you guys want to read another one of the same? But I'm thinking about a book of a man who was imprisoned in the Stalin Soviet jails for 21 years. And he went in keeping Shabbat on a weekly basis, and he came out keeping Shabbat every single week without fail. And I found it to be a fascinating book. I also found it to be a really easy read. So I'm thinking about that book going forward for the next one. And so the emails will go out about it for the next one. And then, or, depending on suggestions that come in, we will change up the options there. Okay, so Chayla and I wish everybody a good night. It was good to see everybody. Upcoming events, of course, include the weekly Thursday night class, as well as follow us on Facebook and Instagram to see the good things happening with other Jews all over the state, in all 159 counties of Georgia, where every Jew is made to feel like a part of a greater Jewish family. With that, I wish all a good night, and I look forward to seeing you in person or on the Zoom next time. All the
Good
best.
night.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
you.
And Juan and Hillary, if you could please, when you finish reading the book, send us an email or give us a call. I'd love to hear your impressions when you get to the end.
I will do.
Please give us a call. We'd love to hear about it. Good night.
We do.
Good night.
Bye.